Good day everyone. So in this video we'll be talking about callbacks. Now what are callbacks? Callbacks are functions that are passed as arguments to another function. For example, you can just imagine the phrase "I'll call you back later." So if there is a function, then it calls another function when it needs it. So it allows a function to call another function. That's basically what callback does. So let's go ahead and create a new file. And let's go ahead and save that file as callback.js. Let me go ahead and clear this. So now initially we created functions by, for example, let's create a function add, and let's just make that function, let's double that function and make the second one subtract. In the first function, let's print out console.log adder. Then let's save that. And in the second one, let's make it a string. Adder function. Then let's go ahead and copy that and replace adder with subtract function. If we go ahead and save this and we come down here and call our add function as well as call our subtract function, and we run this to the screen using Node Callback.js, we can see that we have our adders function and our subtract function printed out to the screen in the order of which we have called it. If we go ahead and swap the subtract function to come first and we save that, we would have the subtract function run first, then the adder function run second. Now one other thing we can do is we can take this add function now and we can put it inside the subtract function. And we can put it inside the subtract function. Now if we go ahead and run this, we have our add function run inside our subtract function. Then our subtract function would now follow it up by printing out the subtract function to the screen. Now back to callbacks. We said callbacks allows you to pass a function as an argument into another function. So let's go ahead and delete this, and let's make this a adder function. Adder function, let's say adder function receives a value. Let's say it receives a value 2. It receives a value, then it just let's say consoles.log, it prints out 10 minus whatever value that we have gotten. If we go ahead and run this function now, we say adder and then we give it a value, maybe 2 for example, and we run this, we can see it gives us 8, which is 10 minus 2. Now rather than giving it a variable, callback allows you to put another function inside of this argument. You can pass another function as an argument. So now let's do that. Let's create another function. Let's create a function arrived number. Function. So arrived number, in arrived number function we want to just return, maybe 4 for example. Now what this does is it returns 4. So now when we go ahead and say adder, then inside here we can just say arrived number, and if we go ahead and run this, we can see we have 6 because 10 minus 4, which is arrived number. So you can see, for example, we can even say var a is equal to 10 minus 19 plus 12 plus 13 minus 15. Then we can go ahead to return a. If we go ahead and run this, it's going to do all this computation, pass it into our function, then now minus 10 from it. Let's do it and see what we are getting. So 10 minus 19, let's say, I don't know, they use board mass, I guess. 10 plus 13, 23, 23 plus 9, that's 32, then 10 minus 32. The computation is quite difficult. Let's just do something like 10 minus 19, which is easy for us to see, and let's run that again. 10 minus 19 is minus 9. I think 10 minus 19 is minus 9. Then we have 10 minus 9, and minus gives us plus, so 10 plus 9, which is 19, and that's how we got our 19. So we are able to perform another function which has a whole lot of stuff inside our function, which is the other function. Now, rather than writing this function outside of your function, you can also, as well, rather than writing this function like this, what you can do is, inside, when you call your function, actually, you can create a new function. You can create a new function at this stage, and maybe you give it a name, which is, let's say, arrived, and this arrived function, we can now say return so you should return maybe 10, or you should return maybe 8 also. So now if we go ahead and run this, we can see it gives us none here. Reason being that this, we are giving it an argument, which is a function, but here we are saying a variable. So in this case, what you can just do is you manipulate your other function and you just put a parenthesis so that it knows that value is a function. So now if you go ahead and run this again, you can see we have 2 to the screen, because this value function has been passed as a parameter into our other function, and the value function just returns 8. So 10 minus what is returned, 8, then that gives us 2 over here. You would understand the importance of these callback functions, because sometimes the value you need to use in your functions are not readily available. So you want to do some computation first before you actually pass those computations as a parameter to your function. Now, one more thing I want to add is that not necessarily all functions would require a name. In JavaScript, you don't necessarily have to use a named function if you are not going to be calling the function. For example, you are not calling arrived somewhere, you can just leave the function as unnamed. So if you go ahead and call this function like this, we just know that this is a function that just returns 8. If we go ahead and run this, we can see we still have 2, in as much as we don't have a name. So you can create functions without using names as far as you are not calling the function anywhere. So that's basically all about callbacks. Let's move a little bit into something else for today, which is called the for each statement. The for each function in JavaScript. The for each is part of the loops function, and this one is mostly used on arrays. So let's just go ahead and create a new array. Let's declare a constant array, or let's declare just a array and say var ages, for example, is equal to 23, 24, 25, 25, 81, and 92. So we have an array of 5 numbers. In for loop, while loop, we were doing a couple stuff. But if you want to access the elements of this array using a for loop, for example, you can just say for var, or let's say let I be equal to 0, I less than ages dot length, then I plus plus. Then we can begin to run our statement inside here. But another method we can do that is using the for each loop. The for each is a property, or the for each is a function property of an array. So if you go ahead and just put ages dot for each, it's a function. So now what the for each statement receive is a callback function, and that is why we had to learn for callback functions before we go ahead into the for each statement. So the for each statement would have something like this. We can say function, and it receives a parameter which is the current index of the array. So we can just say the current index will be current. Let's just name it current. Then what we want that function to basically do is console.log current to the screen. So it just goes through all the array and it prints out the current element. If we go ahead and run this, we can see we have 23, 24, 25, 20, 81, 92. So we can go ahead and perform plenty action, like let's say current plus 1, and we can see a current plus 1. Let's go ahead and run this, and what we can see is we had 23 plus 1, 24, 24 plus 1, 25, 25 plus 1, 26, 81 plus 1, 82, then 92 plus 1, which is 93. So callback functions make things easier, because if you wanted to run this with maybe a for loop or something, your code will be, I think, much longer. But now you've defined a function that just performs all this action and it's done. And this for each already, since it's a property of an array, it knows all the elements of the array, so it just loops through this array. So for the first one, it picks 23 as current. For the second one, it picks 24 as current until it's done. So thank you. That will be all for this video.